Let's dive right into something that affects almost everyone, yet literally nobody talks about honestly: the hidden math of modern suburban homeownership. Today, we're deconstructing the actual numbers behind that white picket fence and exploring this really insidious reality of quiet bankruptcy. Seriously, if you've ever felt like you're making good money but somehow still barely treading water, well, this explainer is exactly for you. Chapter 1: The Safe Suburb Trap. So, could your quiet bankruptcy be starting right here? Let's look at the very real possibility that living in a so-called safe neighborhood might actually be putting you in a state of pretty profound financial peril. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at a pretty typical morning. It's 7 a.m. on a Tuesday. Meet Mark. So, Mark is standing at the edge of his perfectly manicured lawn in a suburb that's routinely ranked as one of the safest in the state. He's got his morning coffee in one hand, but he is definitely not enjoying the sunrise. Instead, he is just staring down at this massive, jagged 6-foot crack that just appeared out of nowhere in the concrete of his driveway over the winter. He lives in a top 10 zip code, totally surrounded by the image of success. $4,000. That is exactly what Mark knows it's going to cost to fix that driveway crack. And as he just stands there, the immediate financial weight hits him like a ton of bricks. His stomach does that completely familiar somersault. Why? Because right after looking at that $4,000 problem, he's going to get into his car and anxiously check his gas light, literally just to see if he has enough fuel to make it to Friday when his paycheck finally hits. So the crucial point here is this totally agonizing paradox. Mark is doing what millions of people in the safe suburbs are doing this very morning. He's wondering how on earth he can own a house worth $500,000, yet simultaneously feel like he is just one broken appliance away from a total financial crisis. You have this massive asset on paper, but a complete lack of actual breathing room in reality. It's exhausting. Chapter 2: The Lie of Average Wealth. Okay, we really need to look at median versus average here, because this creeping feeling of anxiety doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's actually made so much worse by the financial news we all consume every single day. You constantly see those headlines claiming the average household in their 40s has a net worth of nearly $1 million. When you read that, it lands like a punch in the stomach, right? Because you know you aren't anywhere near that. But the truth, that number is basically a mathematically laundered lie. Think about it. If you put Jeff Bezos in a room with 9 broke guys, the average net worth of that room is $21 billion. Technically true? Yeah, sure. Practically useful for the rest of us? Absolutely not. That average wealth is heavily, heavily skewed by the mega-rich. We have to look at the median wealth, that realistic middle number, to actually understand reality. When we look at the real number, the median net worth is actually around $247,000. But here's the kicker. For most people living in the suburbs, 60 to 70% of that wealth isn't even money. It's simply drywall. It's home equity. And the harsh reality of home equity is that you cannot eat it, and you certainly cannot use it to pay your electric bill. It is completely locked away inside the walls of the house you are probably sitting in right now. So how do you actually access that fake wealth when you really need it? Well, your options are pretty bleak. You can either sell your house and be forced to go buy another incredibly expensive house in the exact same inflated market, or you can take out a home equity line of credit, a HELOC, at an interest rate of roughly 9%, which basically means the bank is charging you 9% interest for the absolute privilege of borrowing your very own money. No way. Chapter 3: The Sandwich Generation Squeeze. Okay, this is the structural squeeze. It's absolutely essential to understand the macroeconomic forces making you feel this way. And I really want to validate exactly where you are right now. You are not being financially irresponsible. You are actually being structurally strangled. The average monthly mortgage payment has now hit over $2,300. For so many families, that single payment is consuming over 40% of their monthly take-home pay. This creates a state of what researchers call cognitive compromise. Basically, your brain is just constantly running background math just to ensure you don't go under. It keeps you in this perpetual, exhausting state of stress. And that $2,300 mortgage doesn't exist in a vacuum. You are very likely part of the sandwich generation. You're getting squeezed from both sides. You're trying to do the responsible thing, right? Maxing out a 401k for your own future. Simultaneously, you're writing checks for your kids' travel soccer leagues. And on top of all that, you might be helping an aging parent with memory care, which can easily cost $6,000 a month. When you stack these 3 crushing weights together, you realize something pretty profound. It is mathematically impossible to win a game where you're paying for 3 different generations at once out of one single paycheck. Chapter 4: the 1% rule. Now let's talk about the maintenance reserve. This is the mechanism that inevitably triggers the breaking point, acting as the silent killer of suburban finances. In the personal finance world, the 1% rule is a pretty standard guideline. It dictates that you absolutely must budget 1% of your home's total value annually, specifically for inevitable repairs and maintenance. Because things will break. That is 100% guaranteed. It's like that water heater that consistently chooses 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve to permanently retire. If you aren't preparing for these absolute certainties, your budget is completely unprotected. So let's look at the actual math of that rule for a second. If you live in a $400,000 home, the 1% rule says you should be setting aside exactly $333 every single month into a dedicated reserve just to keep that home afloat. Not to upgrade it, not to renovate the kitchen with fancy new cabinets, but simply to maintain its current condition. But how do families actually handle these emergencies in the real world? Well, most suburban families simply do not have that budgeted maintenance cash just sitting around. Instead, they absorb these massive costs into general lifestyle creep. Or even worse, they slap that emergency plumber's bill right onto a credit card with an interest rate soaring well over 21%. And this right here is exactly how the quiet bankruptcy takes hold. Literally one unexpected emergency at a time, financed at sky-high rates. This leads us to one of the most powerful insights from our source material. Real money whispers, fake money screams. We look around at our coworkers who have the stunning new kitchen remodel or that newly leased BMW in the driveway, and we immediately think we are personally failing. But the absolute truth is that looking wealthy and actually being wealthy are so often inversely correlated. True wealth is quiet. Fake wealth, the kind barely held together by stretched auto loans, high-interest credit cards, and parent plus student loans, that kind of wealth screams for attention. Chapter 5, Escaping the Quiet Bankruptcy. All right, here are the actionable steps. Let's transition from the sheer anxiety of all this math to actual empowerment. I want to bring the focus of this explainer directly to you, sitting at your desk or in your kitchen right now. How do we actually fix this? The goal isn't just to stubbornly sit on a pile of home equity. The real goal is to close the open tabs in your brain that debt creates. The research is absolutely fascinating here. It shows that when a person eliminates their debt entirely, their clinical anxiety drops by a massive 25 percentage points. You stop treating your home like an ATM, and you start treating it as an obligation that you need to retire. Just imagine dropping your baseline anxiety by 25 points. That allows you to make life decisions based on what you actually want to do, rather than what your mortgage requires you to do. It's a total game changer. So, here are the exact, bite-sized actions to stop the financial strangulation. First, immediately stop treating your home equity as an ATM. Second, open your retirement app today and just bump your 401k contribution by a tiny 2 or 3%. It seems small, but it matters so much over time. Third, and perhaps most crucially for your own peace of mind, set up a separate maintenance sub-account at your bank and automate a transfer of just $100 a month into it. Do this so that the next time a crack appears in your driveway, it doesn't feel like a total catastrophe. I know, the math is incredibly tight for so many right now, but it is definitely not hopeless. You still have a compounding window, but you really must turn on this financial machine immediately to protect yourself. As the old saying goes, the best time to start was 10 years ago, but the second best time, that is Monday morning. We have to stop pretending the finish line is just going to patiently wait for us to arrive. So, I'll leave you with this final provocative question to really chew on. Is your safe neighborhood quietly bankrupting you? Look around at those perfectly paved streets, remember the math we uncovered today, and take some action. Your suburb might be quiet, but your wealth absolutely doesn't have to be. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. See you next time.